Hi, welcome to the course. My name is Megan McKenzie and I'm the Manager of PD and Member Engagement for CACUSS, and I'm also facilitating this course, and I'm very excited that you're here. The first thing I want to get out of the way in regards to setting the tone for this experience over the next 12 weeks is that it's my intention that it is casual, informative, fun, participatory, and not formal. So I say that now at the beginning of this video because I know I'm going to make mistakes and flub up, and I'm not going to restart. So I want this to be a space where we can turn on our webcams and talk to each other, and it be okay if all of our sentences aren't perfectly formed or our reflections aren't totally coherent yet, because this is a space for learning and sharing and growing. So as awkward as it is for me to post this kind of floating head video, I'm not going to restart it if I make a mistake. So welcome to authentic me in video form. I'm really excited to be leading this course, and I think that there's a couple of things that it's important that we get out of the way right off the bat. So the first is, why did I think it was important to offer this course? And I think this time that we're at with Student Affairs and Services in Canada is so critical to what happens next. And I think that that can be driven largely by the competencies that were released last year. So I think the competencies can play a lot of really cool roles in our profession, but the biggest one that I see is this opportunity to establish a common language. I know I'm not the only one who thinks that universities and colleges are really bad franchises, where we all set out with the same mission to do things, but we do things just different enough that it's difficult to talk about the work that we do. And I think the competencies are a really neat opportunity to start framing some of the work we do around this opportunity for shared language. So when I started this job at CACUSS about a year and a half ago, I felt that some of my experiences working with ePortfolios, and I'll get to that in a second, really aligned nicely with these competencies, this thing that we're all supposed to be doing something with. And so I thought it could be a really great idea to marry the two. And I'm not sure how it's going to go. I think we have, in the work that we do, enough differences to make it really hard to talk about it, but enough similarities to make it really hard to talk about it. So I think whichever way we slice it, the work that we do is different enough and the same enough that it makes it really hard to have really meaningful conversations, because we do so much context setting. And that's what I hope this course will achieve, is the ability to set some context for the work that we do, to be able to share that with people that it makes sense to share it with, and to work on building those skills to tell our stories about the work that we do, the things that happen in our offices and in our homes and our lives that impact students. So with all of that said, I wanted to give you a little context about me. So I had a really interesting experience getting into student affairs, where my student affairs experience started by sitting on a hiring committee as a student. I had no intention of ever getting into student affairs, and was asked as a student leader in my fourth year, or just after my fourth year of university, to sit on a committee to hire a Res Life coordinator at the University of Prince Edward Island. So I did. It was a great experience. I was 21 years old to sit on this hiring committee. And we found a candidate, and they didn't accept the offer. And then we offered it to a second candidate. They didn't accept the offer. And we didn't have anyone else to offer it to. So I got called into the director's office, and it was suggested to me that I consider applying. So I did. The next day, I had a interview, I don't know if I would call it that, but a one-on-one kind of chat with the director. And the next week I started as a Res Life coordinator. I, at that point, thought, cool, like I'll do this for a couple of years, bank some money, and then move on to whatever the next step in my life was. But it didn't work that way, as you've probably figured out. I went on to work at Res Life at two other institutions. Then I left Res Life and went into student life, like leadership type programming. Then I left student affairs for a while and went into instructional design. So I worked as an instructional designer in an e-learning office, which this is probably starting to make a bit more sense, where I spent 5 years working with faculty as they were developing online courses. Then this dream job at CACUSS came along where I got to kind of blend this instructional design, program design stuff with student affairs passions, and here we are. Throughout that process, so beginning, I worked at the University of Guelph in the Peer Helper program, and we were just starting to experiment with this thing called ePortfolios, and I embraced it and really found that I loved it. And then when I went into this next position where I was working in e-learning, I had a lot of very cool opportunities to do portfolio projects with internship programs, co-op, our Bachelor of Education program, so pre-service teachers developing portfolios, our kind of introduction to university courses, our leadership courses at the University of Prince Edward Island. So I had some really cool experiences with lots of different students. I then started teaching a course in the Bachelor of Integrated Studies at UPEI about career and learning portfolios, and the audience of that course were adult learners who are coming back to get a degree after a life, a career, and they developed a portfolio to go through the PLAR process, the prior learning assessment and recognition, which also was a super cool experience. And if I wasn't a believer in portfolios already, I became a believer during the first time I taught that course, when I had a student with a bachelor's degree in music who wanted to become a physiotherapist. And everybody said, that doesn't make sense, that's not going to work, those skills are different. But she certainly showed us all when she delivered an amazing portfolio with these incredible reflections about her previous learnings and life as a musician, and how she intended to apply those skills to her next career of physiotherapy. And I was 100% sold. I think portfolios have a lot of potential to be transformative. The process more so than the product, because the process forces us to think about things that we've done and how we have put those into context in our lives, and gives us a roadmap to tell us a story. And I think that it's so powerful and it's so fun to go through that process with somebody and help them unpack their experiences, which is why I'm so excited you're here, because I think the diversity in what we do and what we've done and where we come from is so interesting and fun. So I'm really looking forward to going through that process with you and unpacking that work a little bit. One of the things that's interesting about the competencies in our field in Canada is we don't have a single pathway to get into student affairs. So I just told you my story about not really planning to be in student affairs at all, and here I am. And a lot of people have that story. They started in an education program or social work or something else, and ended up where you ended up. We're not like the States where we have required master's degrees to get a lot of entry-level positions. Everybody has a different pathway into the field, and that makes for such rich experiences for us and for our students, but such rich stories. And I'm so excited to share and learn some of those stories with you. So, what can you expect over the next 12 weeks, I think, is a big question. And my first tip, I guess, for this course is that it's not an academic course. And I didn't design it like I've designed academic courses that I've taught in the past. It truly is about professional development. And with that comes a bit less in regards to responsibilities, but a bit more in regards to your motivation and you setting your own track to get through it. That is not an academic course. I'm not assessing you or giving you grades. We are building in lots of peer assessment, and I'm going to look at all of your portfolios and give you feedback, and I'm expecting that from you as well. But if you decide that in a certain week the content that I provide isn't of interest, or there's something else you want to explore, or you got on a tangent last week and you want to keep going, not only is that welcome, it's encouraged. It's different from an academic course where you're expected to catch it all and get through it all and retain it all. I don't expect that you're going to get through everything. I don't expect you're going to read every single post in the discussion forum, but I do expect that you're going to engage with people, and maybe they're people who work at your institution and maybe they're not, but to have those critical conversations, look at each other's work, offer new insights, ask questions, give feedback, participate, engage. So it is, my biggest tip is to think about it from a place of wanting to tell your story, but also wanting to encourage and help other folks tell their stories. Because as we get into this process of storytelling, I think you'll find that different perspectives can really change how you think about and share a story. So that's my biggest tip, is don't try to catch it all. Don't try to check all the boxes every week. When you find something that interests you, dig into it and get into it and get there. And I think that's my biggest tip. So each week I'm going to provide some resources. Ideally, they'll take you no more than 20 or 30 minutes to get through. So the rigor in this process comes entirely from the process you're working on your portfolio, what stage you're at, how deep you're getting into your reflections and starting to tell that story. So that's where the rigor comes. As I like to tell the students that I teach the PLART course to, you're the content, your experiences and your stories, and the questions you ask. The other big tip I have is around feedback. I personally am not a fan of the feedback sandwich, the like, you're really great, but I don't like this, but you're really great. I don't enjoy that. I don't think it's productive or valuable feedback. So I'd like to challenge you to think about your feedback that you give and receive as coming from a place of mutual growth. So when you look at someone's portfolio and you have questions or feedback or something you want to communicate with, attempt to come at that from a place of furthering both your and the person you're dealing with understanding of what's happening. So if we come to feedback from a place of being constructive and supportive and saying, I want to understand, and I want you to help you understand my perspective, and this is how we're going to navigate that together, is significantly more valuable, in my opinion, than kind of this artificial sandwich. So that's my other big tip, is to really think about feedback as a place to move your understanding forward with somebody. This video is way longer than I intended, so I'm going to cut it off. So check out, each week I will give you a few tasks to get through, some discussion starter questions, some resources if you have folks on your campus that you're connecting with to go through the course together, some resources to help facilitate some of that, and a discussion board. So jump in, participate, get involved. I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome, and I'm looking forward to hearing your stories.